Hello, everyone. Okay, I'm just getting organized here, a little bit behind, but hello. So, I'm gonna let this run a minute. I forgot my notes. I've got to go get them. I'll be right back, okay? Stay tuned. Be right back. So, hey, hi, Tony. I see you there. I'm glad you're joining me. And Alyssa, hi. So, I thought it'd be fun. I had a whole bunch of feedback from the other day on Facebook, which Patty is amazing about getting people to answer questions on Facebook. And thank you for everyone that goes on there and really participates on our main Facebook page, which is where you're at now watching, because for every one of you who comment, there are 20 women and some guys out there that are reading your comments and they feel encouraged. I think one of the biggest things for all of us who are unequally yoked is just coming to the realization that we're not alone. Can I get an amen on that? Like, we finally found somebody that gets us. And that is so important. We need to have a community where there are people that understand what we're going through. And so I thought it would be good to go through some of these questions that, people have posted. And I know we do this every now and then where we, post questions and people can ask things. And a lot of times there are a lot of repeats. I know several of the questions that we got on this Facebook post was probably about 2 weeks ago. And I'm reading the notes now because there's some great questions on here. And, but a lot of them are, of course, from new readers who aren't familiar with us, with our ministry as yet. They jump in and they're just getting acquainted with what we do here. And a lot of them have questions about how to raise kids. And I will just go back to referring you to our book, How to Raise Godly Kids in a Spiritually Mismatched Marriage. And you can find that in our store at the website. You can find it on Amazon, because raising kids is quite, as you know, a journey. It's complex, but I really believe in that book we kind of set out the specifics on how to help your kids catch your faith. And it's the same thing with our husbands. It's like living it, persevering, like every day. I'm going to love Jesus. I'm going to choose to love Jesus. I'm going to love Jesus. I don't care what's happening. I'm going to love Jesus. And they're going to see me love Jesus. They're going to see me pray. They're going to see I'm not giving up. I mean, it's that kind of relentless faith that absolutely will make the most impact. It's not what we say to them. Of course, winning him without words. The Bible, God's word's pretty smart. And it's more about what they see us do day after day, year after year. And so for all those questions that came in about parenting, again, I'll just refer you to that book. It is worth the investment. I promise you it's worth it. There's so much wisdom in there. And when we published Raising Godly Kids in a Spiritually Mismatched Home, Deneen added some chapters for, older kids and things like that. There's just a whole bunch of stuff in there. And it's really, you could probably take the book and just use it as a parenting book for raising kids as a Christian, no matter if you're married to an unbeliever. But today, I thought we need to talk about another topic that came up often in the questions, and there was a lot of feedback about this. So I want to read this question. This is from Lizelle. I hope it's okay to share your name, but it says, what I'm struggling with the most is loneliness. Okay, I think we all walk in that. And then she goes on to say, church fellowship is good, but when you are not invited for normal socials and people don't bother to visit or contact you outside the church, it's one of the worst places ever. And another comment was this one from Anna, who said this: her question was how to build relationships around to support you in faith and pray for your marriage. Like, she wanted to know how you find mentors and friends and what to look for and what to watch out for. And then there was a lot of, I'd like to know about that. And, and how do we educate churches about being, spiritually unequal families, how to love us. I pretty much can bet most of you have lived in this kind of marriage for a while and understand that the church, our local church, is completely ill-equipped to help people like ourselves. They miss a huge opportunity because people like us are amazing prayer warriors, and we have just a great desire to connect into our church because we need that. So how can we help churches? And then Christine added on, she says, I agree. Or I guess it was Christy that said this. I agree. My church has life groups and Bible studies for married couples, but nothing for wives that husbands who don't go to church. I want to work on my marriage and be a better wife, but it seems churches don't get it. Okay, so is this an area that, like, most of us have either walked through or we are walking through? And I feel like at my place where I'm at in my marriage now, I've lived through every single one of these situations. I can be very specific about the experiences I've had. And it's a very lonely walk because, in fact, we are married singles. Like, what does a church do with that? Family oriented, mom, dad, the kids. And I get it. That is the most, that is where the majority of their church attendance comes from families. And God bless them. We need the family. The family is under such assault from the enemy's camp that we need to be intentional in being families that bring up godly values. And even programs, those are two different things. First of all, what I want to say is that the local church, if they do not have a group for the spiritually mismatched, and you're looking for one, I can pretty much guarantee you that Jesus is saying to you, it's you, girl, you need to lead this group. And of all the years I've served in this ministry, one of my most favorite moments is when I have one of you guys who calls me and says, okay, I'm stepping out with fear and trembling, but I'm going to start a group at my local church and we're going to study Winning Him Without Words. And do you have any advice? And I love to bless them. And what I have found is that when you start a leadership group, it's one of the best things that can happen to your own personal faith life is to lead your own spiritually mismatched group. And so if you find that your church doesn't have one, talk to your women's ministry director and ask them about, starting one. And then the other thing that you have to overcome is that most people would like to join a group like that. However, the labeling that comes with it is very difficult and challenging because many women would like to attend, but perhaps their husband is actually a deacon in the church, but they at home feel absolutely spiritually mismatched. And so there's some little finesse about reaching out to women. And the best way to do that is just to ask your women's ministry director, who's out there that's disconnected, that you know of, that is married to an unbeliever, and ask her if you can reach out to them, she would connect you, because that person sitting in the church all alone and thinks she's the only one that is sitting there alone and has no one to connect with. And what I've discovered is that those people are sitting all over the church, and there's many of them. And so putting a group together, you make an announcement at your church or whatever, and then you just kind of need to do it on the download and invite people and ask people that you know who is it that might benefit from the group, and just make it very low key. And the other thing is, I think we have to forgive our church. I think we have to just go, I forgive them that they cannot see this niche of people. Churches cannot be all things to everyone. And church is beautiful and amazing, and church is hard and messy at the same time. I mean, church is messy. The leadership is messy. They're all people that are, you know, broken in their own ways, and they've come to Jesus for their healing. And church leadership is very, very difficult. I attend a very large church in my valley, and I'm good friends with the pastors, and I just know how many difficult things they face every day to pastor a church. And so I feel like even though we have been marginalized as a group of people that are married to unbelievers or pre-believers, I think that we just need to give them grace and then not sit back. Like, if you need a group to connect with one. You start one. There's information on the website about how to start a group and all kinds of support material there. And ask your church to support. And if they don't, then start your own. I mean, in my mother's day and age, they all had Bible studies in their houses. You can do that as well. And then we just need to bless the church. I think also we need to make them aware that there are people like us out there, just so that the pastor knows. And I've actually flown to other cities to speak to churches, because there are some pastors that are very, very sensitive to people like us who are married to unbelievers. And you know, I've gone to speak to the entire church, and I love pastors that are in tune. I remember going to Texas one time and speaking in Austin, and this man loved all these people. He even had a lunch set up afterwards that we could have questions and answer time, and it was such an encouragement to all of them. I know some of those people are still readers here at the blog, and I love them. But sometimes we just need to make our pastors aware and ask them how maybe we can help serve that. And I know it makes you angry, and there's a lot of challenges about church life and being a married single or married to, you know, a pre-believer. I want to share one experience I had, because, you know, I love church, and I was even involved with church leadership. But I remember one time it was the fall kickoff, because, you know, churches in the fall kick everything off in the fall. And it was time to start small church groups. They call them rooted groups. They call them small groups. They call them small churches. They have a million different names depending on what church you're attending. But, you know, how you get together with 10 to 12 couples, 10 to 12 people, 20 people, you know, on a weeknight and study the Word. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gung-ho. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I joined a group with a friend of mine who I love and adore them. They were great. And so this is the first night. And what happened was we were all seated in a big round circle in this person's living room. And at the very end next to me is a couple sitting. And somebody asked them to ask the man who was sitting to my left to introduce himself. And we were going to go around the circle and introduce ourselves. You know, it's pretty much what you do in a church small group. And he starts off and he says, my name is whatever he said. And this is my beautiful wife, blah, blah, blah. And then the next couple went on, and the man introduced himself and he introduced his wife. And it went on and on and on, where the husbands introducing their wives, and it gets around to me, and I'm the single person sitting there with no one to introduce me. And I had to say, well, you know, I'm here without a husband, and my name is Lynn Donovan. And it was in that moment for me, I had a clarity that this is not going to work for me. It's the first night, and I felt already out on an outside. And so I think what we have to do is go with, we need to find a group that works for us. I know women's Bible study for me was beautiful. It helped, it fed me in the early years. I needed it. And there's going to be things we try at church that are going to fit and things that aren't. But be forgiving and be loving, and don't grow bitter because they don't see you. Help them to see you, and then you just serve out of the love that you have, because there are other people sitting in your churches who are going through what you are going through, and you'd be quite surprised sometimes who they are. I've had people who are married to pastors email me and say that they are unequally yoked. So be available and be, you know, look for your way to fit in. And don't get angry or bitter. I don't see that changing too much in the future where they offer groups unless you guys choose to do it. And I know so many churches are very, very, very supportive when someone comes to them and says, I would like to offer this group, and I have seen many groups. I know a new one just started in Idaho. I did a Skype to their group recently. So, and it's because one brave young woman decided to start up a group to help the others, and they have an amazing group. Okay, what do we do about friendships? So that can be very challenging. And I know for me, I tried to involve Mike in my small group friendships, at the time when I was in a small group. And for him, Mike just felt out of place and uncomfortable. And I'll be honest with you, Mike's very shy anyway. I have enough boldness for the both of us. And so for him, making new friends is very challenging. And for me, it's not. And I wanted to be part of that group, but he just felt uncomfortable. And it just became such an issue where I didn't want to melt down into a fight about what are we going to do about, going to a church barbecue. And I remember one time we got invited to a church group New Year's Eve party, and Mike came home. He says, that is just the stupidest party I've ever been to, because there was no beer and there was no hooting and hollering. It was weird. So let me also add this. It is absolutely okay for you to have friends as couples that go to church and friends as couples that don't go to church. What I would say about that is choose your friends wisely. We're very good friends with our next door neighbors who moved in about 20 years ago when we did. They're from Wisconsin and they like to play cards. We love to play cards with them. We get together with them maybe once or twice a year now, but in the early years, we got together with them and have a beer, and it's okay. We are not going to go to hell over those kind of things. And over the years, I've had some amazing conversations about my faith. I know they bought my book when it came out and read it. They've come to my book launches. You can have friends that don't go to church that your husband's comfortable with. But choose your friends wisely, because, for me, I can't be around too many friends when the F-bomb's going off. That's just a personal thing. And I'm not being judgmental. Sometimes that's, if you go to a tailgate party in a sports event, don't be too judgmental of the people. You're there to have fun with your husband. I think we need to let go of all that judgmental stuff and being so uptight. Have some friends that are outside of your norm to make your husband comfortable. And then you can also try making friends with people in the church. And I know my husband's very good friends with my old ministry leaders. Her husband, we still remain friends all these years later. So more importantly in that area is just choose your friends wisely. Are these people you would want to be friends with? And just because you have a spiritual difference, you don't have to make that the focal point. And if friendships will change throughout the years. Like Mike and I have been married 27 years, and our friendships have changed. We have friends that come into our lives for a season. We have friends that leave our lives. And I think for a lot of people that's difficult because, it's hard for them to lose friends or whatever. But I feel like God sometimes brings even friendships within our Christian circles into our lives for a season, and they come out of our lives for a season. And when we see it like that, and especially as believers, knowing that one day we're going to see him again in heaven, because personally I hate goodbyes. I don't ever want to say goodbye to anybody. It's just like, I'll see you another time. I have a lot of peace about people that come into my life for a season and then they leave to go on, into different friendships or different things. People just grow up, and same with us. We're growing up. My marriage, since the time we were married until now, I would say I've been about 5 different versions of Lynn Donovan, and I'm hoping that each version gets to be a better person. Who I was 27 years is not the person at all I am today, and that's okay. We grow, we change. And if your husband's angry about growing and changing, it's pretty much common whether you're a believer or not a believer. Men and women change as they marry and grow older together. Women change especially, and that's just the norm whether you're a believer or not. So sometimes you just need to help your husband get educated. Like, it wouldn't matter if I'm a believer or not. I'm going to grow up and I'm going to change, and things I thought that were okay in my 20s are not okay with me now. And that's just pretty much how it goes. A psychologist would tell you that. And sometimes we just have to coach our husbands along. And I know a lot, I had to do that with my husband, and he's done the same with me. So, okay. Anyway, I think that's all I want to talk about. I've probably talked your heads off already. Thank you for staying in here and listening so long. I bless you. Forgive your church if they have left you out and hurt you. Look for those people who are on the fringe, who sit on the outside with you, because they're out there too. They don't fit in. They could be a widow. They could be divorced. Those people feel alone and isolated as well. You go sit down next to them and bless them. Bless them, bless them, bless them. And and if you feel the stirring in your heart that you need to start a group in the fall, now's the time to ask your pastors about doing that. Show them the book. Show them that we have curriculum set up, that there's study questions in the back of the book. And you can do it in 6 weeks, or you can do it in 11 weeks. I think it can be set up either way. I love you, my friends. I bless you, and I pray that as you go to church this Easter, that you have an encounter with the truth and love of Jesus Christ, because that is what we celebrate this Easter, is everything. It is the blood covenant that changed our lives, that changes our lives over and over again, that forgives us over and over again. And that if you sit there alone or with your husband, that you go in going, Jesus Christ, I'm here to honor and love you for what you did for me. And just pour out your heart to him in worship. And let this Easter just be an amazing time for you and your family. I love you. God bless you. And I will see you guys soon. Okay? Bye-bye.